Hazardous waste at the Sellafield nuclear plant is becoming a significant risk to people and the environment. That's according to a report out today from the National Audit Office. It says poor planning and neglect during the decommissioning process at the nuclear power plant in Cumbria means the £67 billion project is also failing to create value for money. Dr. Bridget Woodman.
Wednesday, 7th of November 2012, the day that the re-election of America's President Barack Obama is confirmed. A day when the world's media is focused on this outcome and looking ahead to the new Communist Party leadership appointed in Beijing, China. A good day to bury bad news, such as the damning report into the parlous state of Britain's nuclear facility at Sellafield, Britain's first nuclear plant, which has been operating since the 1940s. 70 years during which they still haven't figured out what to do with the byproducts of nuclear fission, products which will remain dangerously radioactive for at least 100,000 years. Our rulers are right to be cautious about how and when such information is released. They know full well the explosive social implications of news like this, the widespread public disquiet and concern it provokes. In 2010, Germany witnessed massive anti-nuclear demonstrations against the storage of nuclear waste in the country, the transport of further waste through it, and the decision of Angela Merkel's government to extend the life of the country's nuclear reactors. Then, in Japan this spring and summer, and largely unreported outside that country, the growth of monster demonstrations against the conditions of life, the biggest for 40 years.
Japanese media reported 170,000 people.
Friday, March the 11th, 2011, 2:46 in the afternoon.
The factor that unleashed this discontent is linked to the trauma of Fukushima the previous year, to the strong indignation faced with the lies of the Japanese authorities and their willingness to pursue a near-suicidal nuclear program. The latest national plan envisages the construction of 14 new reactors from now until 2030. Following the catastrophe at Fukushima, the government has no better way of reassuring the population than saying they won't be immediately affected, it's not that serious, it's just like going on an aeroplane or through an X-ray. What cynicism! It's not surprising that the angry population asked for a nuclear halt.
In the first days following the disaster, it was judged so serious that the authorities even considered evacuating Greater Tokyo.
The vile events of Fukushima, the scale and seriousness of which have yet to be truly calculated, recall memories of the Chernobyl disaster in the Ukraine in 1986, the 1979 release of radioactive cloud at 3 Mile Island, Pennsylvania, or even the 1957 fire and radioactive release at Sellafield itself, then called Windscale. These are just some of the most infamous nuclear reactor accidents.
On August the 6th, 1945.
Went off, the whole inside of the airport.
Neither has the population ever forgotten that the energy provided by nuclear fission is a mere byproduct of our rulers' drive to war. The names Hiroshima and Nagasaki are burned into the collective consciousness.
Buildings vaporized, so did the clothes on people's backs. Was it a bomb that should never have... One thing was not in doubt. Hiroshima taught mankind the awful truth about nuclear weapons and just what horror they could bestow.
So too is the fact that there remain some 20,000 nuclear warheads in the world, with more countries striving to master the technology to produce them. Nor that access to or the strategic control of supplies of energy, such as provided by oil, actually fuels many of the world's bloody conflicts. But horrendous though they may be, the dangers of nuclear technology under a capitalist framework, or the quasi-permanent state of war between nations, aren't the only sources of concern regarding the planetary environment on which mankind depends. It's now a commonplace, a cliché, that environment is under threat from all angles. The sea is a dumping ground for capitalism's toxins, leading to potentially devastating effects on the food chain already hit by overfishing. The planet appears to be warming, leading to polar ice melts, rising sea levels and flooding. Areas of the planet once considered benign are tormented by increasingly wild weather, while conversely deserts encroach upon what was once arable land. Chemicals designed to maximize harvests poison the earth and destroy the pollinators on which we depend.
Mysterious disappearance of the bees, colony collapse disorder. The causes are still unknown.
The very atmosphere in which we exist is said to suffer from breaks in the layer of protective ozone. Ozone holes, which many scientists say is produced by the burning of fossil fuels, of human-generated carbon and other emissions, further contributors to global warming and planetary degradation. It's not our intention here to enter into the scientific debates on these issues, even if many of the world's leading authorities agree on the reality of global warming, and many argue that urgent and substantial reductions in carbon and other emissions should be mandatory, just as the various rulers of the planet find reasons why they can't or won't enforce such strictures. What we do want to insist upon is this fundamental truth. The ruling class, the capitalist class, the bourgeoisie, is not only in large part responsible for this lamentable state of affairs, it is utterly incapable of providing solutions. The ruling class doesn't understand or control its own economic processes. It can't solve its own economic crises. It doesn't understand or control at a fundamental level the spiral of the planet into greater and more destructive wars, even as it devotes more and more resources to pursuing armed conflict. And driven by the laws of its social system of production for profit, not human need, capitalism and those who represent it most certainly can do nothing but flounder and dissemble in the face of environmental catastrophe and the totally avoidable misery this imposes on humanity.
They are the screams of those watching their town being washed away by the tsunami.
It's clear that capitalism makes humanity more vulnerable to natural disasters. It's not just in Japan that millions of people are crammed into wooden houses along coastal shores, permanently threatened by the risk of earthquakes and giant waves. But Japan is the world's third largest economic power, a country where banks, corporate headquarters, government buildings and the homes of the rich are brilliantly designed to withstand natural disasters. It shows what could be accomplished for everyone. But as elsewhere, and for reasons of profit and loss, in Japan they have built nuclear power stations which are real time bombs, at the mercy of earthquakes and the tsunamis. The ruling class is still trying to make us believe that this is all the fault of nature, that we cannot predict the power of earthquakes and the magnitude of tsunamis. This much is true. But what is most striking is how capitalism, after 200 years in which it has produced phenomenal scientific knowledge and technical know-how that could be used to prevent this kind of disaster, constantly increases the monstrous danger to humanity. Capitalism's culpability is not only seen in Asia. Europe is still counting the cost of a toxic tidal wave of sludge that turned the blue Danube red after a reservoir collapsed in Hungary in October 2010.
7 villages have been swamped and the land and rivers are being poisoned.
Residents of Eastern Europe are trying to dig out of a cold
In February 2012, a European cold snap, a hardly unexpected event, killed an estimated 700 in a few days, injuring thousands more through frostbite, while power shortages left the old and weak vulnerable. In Britain, November 2012, the return of flooding to areas declared protected by new defences. Failure to plan for the long term may leave Britons facing power outages as of 2015. But it's in the heartlands of capital that the retrograde effects of this social system can most clearly be seen. For 100 years, China's development has been strangled by world wars and international competition. Today, it plays belated catch-up by endangering the global environment and local people in the most horrendous ways. In America, 1995 already witnessed widespread destruction in and around New Orleans as Hurricane Katrina destroyed wholly inadequate flood defences, killing over 1,800 people in the process and making hundreds of thousands more homeless. The ruling class, having learned little, watched as in late October 2012 an estimated 305,000 US homes were destroyed by the superstorm Hurricane Sandy, which killed almost 100 in the Caribbean before ripping into the most populous areas of the US, flooding New York subways, knocking out Wall Street, killing 121 people and leaving others abandoned and without power up to a month afterwards. Given all the accurate weather warnings, the advanced technology, how did this happen? Again, who is responsible and why? Our rulers, of course, focused on those who didn't evacuate in time, those given just 24 hours to escape a storm that had been predicted for at least a week. But in truth, it's the capitalist state, its bureaucracy and preoccupation with profit and loss, rather than care of its citizens, that must bear the responsibility. We indeed have the technology, but Houston and the rest, they have a problem. It's not the hazardous nature of nuclear technology. That may be manageable, or even indispensable in a society that puts human need before profit. We'll have to see. And the problem is certainly not that we are greedy and consume too much. There's no equal blame, no we here. We don't have equal power with the capitalists to decide where nuclear power stations are placed, or where and why wars are waged, or to decide on the intense and insane competition within and between capitalist states. It's capitalism which produces like there's no tomorrow, and it exploits the vast majority of the planet's population and the planet's resources to do so. Fortunately, capitalism has also created an international producer class, the working class, which is not fundamentally encumbered by or imbued with capitalism's division into competing nation-states. Remember, the workers have no country, nor have they any interest in being exploited by this moribund system. It's a class that exists by working and struggling collectively. From this, it follows that the working class should reject all the moralistic blandishments of the Greens and others who tell us to consume less, as if the entire organisation of society is an individual lifestyle choice rather than a struggle between classes with opposing interests, the decaying ruling class representing an outmoded past, the collective global working class prefiguring the future of a united humanity. Now, there's no separate ecological fight to be waged today. The struggle is a political one, a battle for power, for control of society's riches and their potential to fill our needs. The alternative, to carry on as we are, is demonstrably, clearly untenable. So when it seems that we're drowning in economic misery, irrational war and senseless ecological destruction, when we're subject to images of hopelessness and defeat, there is in fact a human element that shows an alternative, that points the way forward. The struggle of the international proletariat to defend its living standards, to refuse austerity, is the same struggle to protect the planet, because only the working class can in the future build a society in which humankind is in harmony with itself and the planet on which it depends. For some in-depth articles on the ecological crises of capitalism, for informed debate and to contribute to a solution, join us at www.internationalism.org, the online home of the International Communist Current.